Good evening and welcome to Tales from the Edge of the Bard, produced in collaboration with Silicon Valley Shakespeare. According to theater lore, the ghost light does not merely serve to illuminate a dark theater, it serves a second purpose, to keep the ghosts at bay. What sinister things lurk beyond that light? What tales will you find on the edge of the dark? Shakespeare's stories are rife with ominous ghosts. Hamlet's father, Julius Caesar, Banquo, and, in Richard III, a whole cavalcade of spirits offering the cheerful advice of despair and die. Tonight's plays draw inspiration from Macbeth, The Tempest, and the legend of the Ghostlight itself. So without further ado, we go now live to our cast in their homes, pleased to present to you Tales from the Edge of the Bard. Ghostlight by Marley Teeter, directed by Melinda Marks.
Hello there. It's a hot night, isn't it? Hotter than it should be. Do you want these windows open? I'll open them. It's good to let some of the air in. It's good to make sure the outside world's still there. Your ma tells me you're going out later. Is that right?
Dunno.
That's right.
The way the wind is whipping up, there could be a brownout, a blackout even. Where are you planning on going in weather like this?
Dunno.
A play.
A play?
At the theater.
Tonight? You couldn't possibly.
Close the window. It's cold.
Theaters are cold.
Not if you don't open their windows.
There are no windows. That's the point. A theater, now listen to me. A theater is a little room with no windows where they turn out the lights. They put you in darkness and they tell you what you are and aren't allowed to see. You cannot go to the bathroom. You cannot speak. You must not speak. You're trapped until they decide you may leave. Does that sound like a good place to be on a night like this?
No?
Right.
We're trapped until who decides?
Never mind.
Are you gonna come with us? Ma said that...
I'm not going anywhere tonight, and neither should you. With wind like this, and it's hot too. Such a hot night. Everyone will be blasting their ACs. The power's bound to go out.
It'll be fun though. Ma says it'll be like a movie, only better.
It's not something your mother understands, all right? She knows nothing about the theater.
But...
Tell me, have you heard of a thing called a ghost light?
Dunno.
No.
Say to your ma you can't go. Say you're feeling sick.
That's lying.
What's a ghost light?
A ghost light? Oh, Lord help me. You won't tell your ma about this, will you? If I tell you, you promise that you'll stay home tonight and say the winds made you sick.
You open the window. If the wind makes us sick, then it's your fault.
Of course. A ghost light. A ghost light is a light the theater leaves on when no one's there.
Why?
Because theaters are haunted places. Because without a light left on, the theater's ghosts get upset.
No way. Ghosts don't want light. Or they haunt during the day.
Ghosts like dark.
Ghosts pretending they're still alive, like light. And theater ghosts are always ones who want to pretend. Look, this is what I'm trying to explain. The theater is a place where characters who seem to be people are actually actors in places that seem to be in locations. And the locations are actually sets. It's easy in a place like that for ghosts to insist on being alive. And if you don't leave a light on for them, oh, Lord help me, quit spinning in circles like that.
It's so I'll be sick and won't have to lie.
You're making me dizzy with your spinning. Oh, all right. They're an illusion, okay? One that breaks down sooner than you'd guess. Go to any theater after hours and
Ooh.
keep your voice down.
Why?
You know your ma doesn't like superstition.
What's superstition?
She doesn't like what she thinks is superstition.
What's superstition?
You know, like those musty old feathers Grandpa keeps in his pouch. Ma says that they're...
Yes, those would qualify as something your ma believes to be superstition. But look, this is important, okay? It's important even if your ma doesn't... I just want to protect you. I love you both so much, and I want to protect you however I can. So if I tell you this story, you have to promise me you'll stay home tonight. Don't go to the theater.
I guess.
Maybe.
You need to promise.
Fine. Can you close the window? Please? I'm cold.
This happened, Lord above. It happened in St. Louis when I was 12 years old. Tornado country. This is a story about what ghosts do when the theater allows its ghost light to go off.
Down with the topmast! Yar, lower, lower! Bring her to try with the main course!
I sat in the back row watching. It was a thing I used to do a lot before. Watching rehearsals, I mean. Watching my brother. He was so good at being things he wasn't. Actors clung to a splintered mast, a ripped sail. One of them was crying.
Why was he crying?
He had to cry. It was part of the play. In the theater, you do what the play wants you to.
A plague upon this howling! They are louder than the weather or our office!
Hang, cur! Hang, you whoreson and insolent noisemaker! We are less afraid to be drowned than thou art!
All lost!
To prayers! To prayers!
All lost!
Mercy on us!
We split! We split!
Farewell, my wife and children!
Farewell, brother!
We split! We split! Let's all sink with the king!
The wills above be done, but I would fain die a dry death.
James! Hey, James, your brother's here again. You'd better tell him to get on home before the storm.
Henry, why aren't you at home?
Hey, James.
Does Ma know you're here?
Yes.
Henry.
No.
5 minutes till places.
Thank you, 5.
It's just, she's in a mood. She kept yelling at me about touching the stove, but I wasn't even in the kitchen, I swear.
You can't leave just because she's in a mood. And when I'm not there, I need to know that you are. Not being able to remember stuff, it's hard for her, you know? It's really frustrating. Now that Dad's gone, having a real hard time.
But she kept yelling. I want to watch your play.
Another time, okay? There's a tornado coming tonight, so I need to trust that you're home helping Ma take shelter. What if she doesn't hear the sirens? Or what if she hears them but doesn't want to do what they say?
But can't I just...
Places.
Thank you, places.
Another time, Henry. For now, I need to know I can count on you. Can I do that?
Yes.
Good.
The lights went out. The storm sounds, the fake ones, started up again. The actors headed backstage, and I was about to leave, only there was a costume piece slung over a chair in the audience. Black harpy wings for a later scene.
Down with the topmast! Yar, lower, lower! Bring her to try with the main course!
I grabbed them, not because I thought they were magic. I was 12. I knew that whatever magic a theater held could only exist so long as the play went on. No, it wasn't that. I grabbed the wings because I was young. Because I was angry that I had to take care of Ma and her moods. Because, sweet Lord above, I've thought about this so many times, been over it so many times. What impulse could possibly have driven me to... The only explanation I have is that I wanted the chance to be something I wasn't to. And thank God.
A plague upon this howling! They are louder than the weather or our office!
I closed the door behind me. The storm inside muffled, and the storm outside didn't yet exist. It was warm outside, quiet. How do I explain? It was nothing like the 10-sheet clamor of thunder and lightning inside the theater. The sky wasn't dark. It was only heavy. I felt its weight against me like an unseen hand. That pressure will build into a headache if you don't do something about it. Inside an underground room, my brother was lost in an artificial storm, but outside, the sky was much too big and much too green. It's not right for the sky to be so green. I knew that. I knew James was right, and that a sky like a dragon's belly meant that things beyond my control. I smashed the wings against my chest. It wasn't long my way home, but I ran.
Ma? Ma!
Henry, were you in the kitchen? I swear if you turned on that stove, I'm not going to be
Ma.
happy.
I crammed the wings into the hallway's umbrella stand. Feathers fallen off in my fist. I stuffed them in my pocket.
You're going to burn down the house if you don't.
I'd gotten home not a moment too soon. Out went the lights, ours, the neighbors, everyone's. At the theater, every light had gone out too. I didn't know. I didn't even stop to wonder. Why should I have?
Ma.
It's just rain, Henry.
Hail, Ma.
Then it's just hail.
There's a tornado coming.
There's always a tornado coming.
Hail the size of golf balls smashed against our casements, ricocheting off the roof. Ma's eyes narrowed. She held herself taut, alert like a cat, sensing for bad weather. Could she not tell the bad weather was already upon us? She sneezed, shook herself out, and then repeated.
You're being so silly. It's just hail.
You hear the sirens?
There are always sirens.
We need to get away from the windows. We need to get into the tub. Ma, come on.
I took her by the elbow and led her to the bathroom slowly. With Ma, everything had to be done so very, very slowly. The tornado sirens wailed, and we walked with painful precision through the dark.
Stop clinging to me like that, would you? Your hands are sweaty as a hog. It's unnatural.
In the bathroom, hunched a shape like an ill man over the side of our claw-footed tub. The mattress. James must have moved it earlier, I thought, and then felt a pang of guilt. Of course he had. Of course he'd been thinking of Ma and me. Meanwhile, I'd stolen those wings.
No, Ma, that's not...
She was trying to lie on top of it, which only made it sag more, look more ferociously ill.
We need to get into the tub and then pull it over us, okay? Like a roof.
This isn't comfortable.
Ma grasped.
It's like playing house.
I told her. Except your Ma's the baby and you're the Ma. And you're waiting for your brother, who's the only one who can be the dog. But he's busy being an actor and pretending a storm while a real wind bares its teeth. All messed up. All turned inside out. And I thought, if I were an actor, at least I'd be prepared.
Where's Frederick? When's he coming home?
She meant Da.
How am I supposed to have dinner on the table if I don't know when that man's coming home?
Ma's dead.
Watch your mouth! Why are we in this tub? My back hurts. Where's Frederick?
And I recited James' play to distract myself.
Davis were death and now have ceased.
I murmured.
Why, they were no worse than they are now.
I've been so proud to help him learn his lines.
What are you mothering about? And why are we under this musty thing?
To stay here till the sirens stop.
I can't breathe. It's like being buried alive. Where's Frederick?
And on.
When's that man getting home?
And on. For a while, I thought the sirens had stopped. But then I'd think I was hearing them again, and I couldn't be sure. Perhaps I was making it up. Perhaps I was hallucinating. There really wasn't much air under the mattress, and Ma's questions took up so much space. I needed James. When was he coming home? I didn't want to make a mistake and emerge too soon, because what if I couldn't get Ma back under again? I held my breath, listened to the muffled nothing, and waited. And James didn't come.
Frederick! Frederick!
There's only so many times you can tell someone her husband's dead.
Frederick!
If I'd been an actor, I would have known how to relieve that pain for her without it touching me. Where was James? Why wasn't he home? Surely his rehearsal had ended by now. Surely the storm had passed. The wings. Was he angry about the wings? Had the actors gotten to the harpy scene and been unable to continue because of me? I couldn't take it any longer.
I'm going out for a minute, Ma. You want to watch TV?
The power was still out, though. Thankfully, Ma shook her head.
You want help getting into bed? I'll be back real soon.
Before I left, I yanked the wings from the umbrella stand. I'd ruined them, stuffing them in there. It was too dark to see, but I knew that I had. I took them anyway, cradled to prevent whatever further damage I could, and began my slow way towards the theater. Every window I passed unlit. Too much darkness, even for night. Too much quiet, even for the dead. Almost there. Only a block away now. A fallen branch nearly tripped me, and it was easy to imagine a hand reaching to drag me beneath the earth. I wasn't prone to flights of fancy, but in that vast, dark stillness, it was easy to believe. It made me think that plays should always happen after storms, when convincing audiences would be easy. It made me think that plays should never happen after storms. From outside, the theater was like any other building that night, dark and quiet and too heavy in the earth. But it was different, too, because it had always been dark and quiet, hadn't it? It had always been weighed down by a million false and true emotions, a world set apart, isolated. It liked being like that.
Hello?
I called tentatively.
Hello?
There was nothing unusual in the theater's darkness, nor its hush. There was nothing unusual in its door being unlocked. It was hard to push open, though. So hard that I thought maybe the actors had gone and locked the door after all. Had I passed James in the dark, focused as I'd been on unseeable dangers? Had he passed me like a ghost? I pushed harder, like pushing against a great wind.
Hello?
Dust swirled around my feet and settled. An old playbill someone had folded into a paper airplane caught under the sole of my boot. I picked it up, put it in my pocket. The door shut. You haven't grown up in tornado country. You don't know. Everything is strange after a storm. There's a way tornadoes have of sucking all the air from around out of the sky and taking it home with them. The silence in the theater that night. You can't blame me for not realizing its strangeness. I pressed my hand, not holding the wings, along the wall for balance, knocking into framed pictures as I went down and down the stairs. You can't blame me for not noticing until I was in the place's very belly that I heard no one.
Hello?
I banged my knee into a chair and dropped the harpy wings. There was no light at all until the ghost light clicked on. A single bulb, naked but caged.
Hello? James? It's Henry! Who's there? James, hello?
Splintered wood littered the stage. Why? The tornado hadn't been down here. The set of the play was in tatters. My vision swam with the memory of James clinging to the mast, the sail. His face, though. A black feather fell from my pocket, floated to the floor, and James's face was stretching and changing, parts of it shifting and being taken apart to be used for other things. Shadows moved. I backed up, stumbled, tripped. An old par can, its cord chewed through by rodent teeth. What was going on? What in the earth was...
James!
I ran!
Ma! Ma! Did James...
Henry, did you touch that stove?
No! This is important, Ma! James! Has he come home from rehearsal? Something's wrong. I need to talk to James.
James?
It was a vacant look she gave me, but not the vacant look I knew. There was something studied to it, a little too wide, a little too glassy.
James, Ma. Did he come home?
I don't know who you mean.
My memory wasn't good, so of course I thought, of course.
You've broken something and are making things up to cover it, aren't you? Child, when are you going to grow up?
I'm not, Ma. I'm not making anything. Look!
I pulled the playbill from my pocket, feathers fallen to the floor. I prayed it was the right show. Even if not, I prayed she'd recognize the look of it, and that would be enough. It had to be enough.
See?
I unfolded it. Paper cut.
Are you molten, Henry?
She said, her voice trailing to the kitchen.
Throw that garbage away and come set the table before your dog gets home.
Pa's dead, Ma.
I looked at the crumpled paper in my hand. It was so old, so faded. Who could even say what show it was from? I tried to find James, but couldn't. The actors' headshots had all been replaced with ghosts. Tears brimmed in my eyes as I picked up the feathers Ma wanted me to throw away, and then, feathers gripped tight in one hand, the playbill in the other, I suddenly could see what someone in pale ink had scrawled.
We thought we were safe. A windowless room underground? What could be safer in a storm? We didn't know what happens when the ghost light goes out.
Is that... That's not the end, Grandpa.
That doesn't feel like an end.
That's because it's not an end. It's just the only end I have.
But is it true?
I told you that it is.
What about your brother?
Grandpa doesn't have a brother.
Weren't you listening? He had one. What happened?
Where did all the actors go? How come the feathers...
They were a piece of the play I'd taken with me. The one thing the ghost didn't destroy.
That doesn't make any sense.
Maybe not. You're right. I was young. It's hard to know, so maybe not. In any case, it's time for you two to clean up now. You promised me you'd go to bed, where you'll stay safe.
But how come...
Why did you...
Just please. You promised, didn't you? I'll talk to your mom. It's time for you to go to bed.
Night, Grandpa.
Night, Grandpa.
Good night, both of you. Don't turn off that light. That one, yes. It's battery operated. So please, let's keep that one on, just in case.
Some ghosts haunt theaters, some ghosts haunt our minds, or steal them. Before we go on to our next piece, now is a good time to call attention to the web address on your screen. Silicon Valley Shakespeare invigorates the classics through innovative, relevant theatrical experiences that illuminate and inspire modern audiences. If you believe in the importance of art and the power of stories to transform our lives, please, if you're able, support this wonderful organization so they can continue bringing illuminating stories to our community. And now let's go back to our actors. to a purportedly haunted castle in Scotland, and our final story of the night. The Inverness Case Study by Melinda Marks, directed by Picotto.
This is Dr. Porter, former associate professor on the faculty of the psychology department at Spring Hill University. I am providing the following statements as part of an affidavit into the investigation of the death of Michael I. During the course of a study that was conceived, prepared, and conducted by myself. While on the faculty at Spring Hill and in my former practice, my field of specialty has been in abnormal psychology with an emphasis on the qualitative. Essentially, I study documentation, diaries, interview transcripts, letters, drawings, etc., and attempt to create modes of understanding and treatment from these records. Over the years, these professional studies have led to a private interest in, for lack of a better term, the paranormal. I was always very much a believer only in the tangible, the provable, and the treatable. Yet I found myself wondering over the years whether or not there might be another way to develop a different way of evaluating experiences of psychosis, ways to better understand and engage with those individuals whose brains produce different realities from what others can acknowledge or imagine. I began, therefore, to conceive of an experiment in which a temporary psychosis might be induced, not by altering the brain, but by altering the circumstances of experiential reality. What might happen if an experiment could prove that an induced experience in healthy subjects produced the same psychological effects, even if the experiences of that reality were not necessarily identical, not a shared psychosis, but simultaneously generated? I began to search for an ideal environment. I consulted with a large and supportive community of ghost hunters and settled on a purportedly haunted castle at Inverness, a remote and isolated estate known by both history and legend to be a location of much death, war, and misfortune. While it is neither in use nor open to general public as a place of interest, it is currently owned and kept up by the Scottish government, who agreed to grant my team a 72-hour stay on the premises. I originally intended to select 4 subjects associated with SHU as a way of limiting my study set during the first stage of research. Out of over 1,000 applicants, all of whom were interviewed and subjected to a full and thorough mental health assessment, the following subjects were selected.
Lenore S., 29, Human Resources Coordinator.
Russell F., 23, graduate student, philosophy and rhetoric.
Alex B., 41, therapist, campus counseling and psychological services.
As I said, I intended for this round of subjects to be associated with the institution, but I made the mistake of becoming intrigued by a letter I received, the contents of which are included below.
Dr. Porter, my name is Mike I, and I have a story that I hope might be of interest to you. I was raised as an only child by loving parents in a religious home. I grew up, went to college, then seminary, and became a minister. I never married, and I have spent my entire adult life in service of my community. Until recently, I have found a great amount of peace in this choice, and my life has been generally steady, fulfilling, and unremarkable until my parents passed last year. In the process of settling their affairs, I discovered I was adopted. I believe the shock of this discovery was magnified by the recent losses I had suffered. I suppose my faith was already being tested by grief. I have always been a rather solitary man, but I had never felt truly alone in the world before. I felt reinvigorated by the possibility that I might find another family somewhere. I tried to track down any biological relatives, only to discover that by all available accounts, I appear to be the last surviving member of both families. Since then, I have developed an interest, an obsession, you might call it, with genealogy. It has been a way for me to feel connected to my parents, and it has also enabled me to learn more about the family I never knew. I have used the adoption records to trace my unknown family line and find that one branch of the tree leads to the very subject of your experiment, Inverness Castle. I happened to be on the campus this morning helping to organize a food drive and learned about your study completely by chance when another volunteer mentioned that she was considering applying to be a subject. I asked for your information, and she was kind enough to oblige. Dr. Porter, I don't know if I believe in ghosts, or in whatever forces a ghost might be made of. There are some days recently where I have found it difficult even to believe in God. But I still believe in faith. Something led me to you, and I feel compelled to follow that path as far as it'll take me. You, of course, have no obligation to me in any way, and I understand that I may not be who you're looking for, even if you are who I may be looking for. A strong sense of faith should allow for the unexpected, but also allow for hope. I have not felt either for some time, but I do today. And that's a gift all on its own, for which I thank you. Sincerely yours, Michael I., Master of Divinity.
After I read the letter, I invited the gentleman in. I interviewed him, tested him, and included him as the fourth member of the study. My greatest mistake, I'm sure. I firmly believe, although I cannot prove, that Mr. I's inclusion in the group is directly responsible for the events that took place in the early morning hours of September 26th of last year. The following are all qualitative records that were to have been collected during the study before its cancellation following his murder. At the request of subject Russell F., who has declined all further interviews on the topic for the present, I offer instead this audio footage compiled from tape recorded by the subject on his own recording device throughout the afternoon, evening, and early morning of the 25th and 26th of September. It has been consolidated to cut out any large gaps of dead air, but no sounds have been added or augmented from the original presentation.
Hey, this is Russ coming at you from the epicenter of cliche scares, a haunted old castle. Not only is it big, dark, and cold, but we're practically tilting off the edge of a foggy cliff into some kind of marsh or something. If the ghosts don't come for me, I might take a dip into the muck just for something to do. The straight story is that I'm here as a subject of a mad science experiment. They want to see how our brains endure the traumatic stress of paranormal rays or whatever, but the truth is, I think that ghosts are a bunch of BS. I'm here to conduct a study of my own, the effects of ghost stories on gullible rubes. Looking forward to it. And here we have one now. Do you mind if I interview you?
Are you with the study?
I mean, yes and no. I'm a lab rat. Are you?
No, I mean, I'm a subject, I guess.
Well, can I talk to you anyway? Record ya? Rat to rat?
Sure, I guess.
Okay, great. Name, age, occupation, measurements? Just kidding. Just the first three.
I'm Alex. I'm a therapist.
Wait, you're a brain doc And you're not with the study. Do you believe in any of this spooky stuff?
I don't know. I think it's good to keep an open mind. But I'm mostly interested in the collective experience of whatever this will be. The things that attracted us here and the way we interact with our surroundings, each other. It'll be interesting.
Uh-huh. So you think it's bunko? Me too.
Oh, well,
Anyway,
think...
what about you? Do you believe in ghosts or what? I'm Russ, by the way.
Lenore, and I'm not sure.
Jeez, nobody has any straight answers around here. Well, what brought you all the way out here to the middle of bog country if you aren't sure then?
I'm interested in history, and I have an open mind. Anyway, why are you here? You just said all of this was bunko anyway.
The doc says I'm a control. If I don't believe in ghosts, but I see them anyway, they must be real, right? Anyway, a paid vacation to a moldy bog is still a paid vacation.
I guess.
And you?
Michael. Believer. I'm here to learn about my heritage.
You, related to any of these ghosts, Michael? I'll take that as a maybe. Anyway, that's us. More later. Here's hoping I don't die of boredom or sink into any peat farms before then. Speaking of, who do I see about getting some top shelf whiskey in this drafty hole? Anybody? All right. Checking in after our fine dining experience to report nothing except my success at fighting booze in this dump. Dinner was uneventful. No one else can take a joke or give one for that matter. But I tell you, I did find whiskey, and it has made my evening more entertaining in the absence of any actual good time. Dr. Porter, the ghostiologist, or whatever you call it, just wanted to go over procedure, what to do, where to go, how to maintain a record of our experiences, and all that. I waited for them to do their spiel and told them I'd be doing my own thing. Thank you. Expected a little bit of a fight, just to shake things up at the family table. But they seemed all right with it. Can you believe that? Some study this is if you don't even care about following your own rules. That shrink just sat there, watching everyone, and the Baron of Inverness was so intent on communing with his great-grandghouls in here, it borders on piety. Snooze! The librarian-looking broad? Is that right? A little too quiet for my taste. I think she might be the only one with a sense of humor outside of this place. But something about the air in here seems to suck all the life out of people. Maybe we're the ghosts, man. Heavy. All right, campfire story time. The hour of the clock is now 1 a.m. I'm toasted from the whiskey, toasty from the hearthfire, and bored out of my skull. The dog has us all sequestered in separate wings. I might have thought this was to prevent fraternization before I saw the lineup of suckers who... Wait. Now this is interesting. Listeners, I don't know if you picked up on this, but there's something making noise in the hallway directly outside of my own. Do I dare investigate? Oh, I dare. Armed with flashlight and tape recorder, out I venture to the voids of...
This is Porter again. From here, the tape is disjointed, and this is the area in the recording in which major periods of silence occur. For the further clarification of the listener, I will be indicating the sections and lengths of time in which those gaps are present in the extant tape. The first of these occurs here, lasting 6 minutes, 31 seconds.
If you can still hear me, listeners, I'm still here. Someone was outside my door in the hall, and he needed something from me. He needed some of my whiskey, so we had a drink or two. A drink inside the bog. To our health!
Here we have the next sequence of dead air, 34 minutes, 20 seconds.
He drank my booze, but he left the bog. Where'd you go? Hey! I'm out on the heath with an empty bottle and an empty head. I must be very drunk. I decided I'm out for a walk on the grounds, tending watch for how to get back in. What the hell?
1 hour, 27 minutes here.
He should have come by now. Not even the booze to keep warm with. Didn't he remember I was coming? Okay, maybe I found. This is the place. Hey, it's time for me to go in!
9 minutes, 54 seconds.
He opened the big door for me, but that's not the right one. He told me this was the place. But he said he'd show me where. Where's the right room? Which is the door?
5 minutes, 14 seconds.
I forgot about you for a second there. Whoever you are listening out there in the peat. On the trail. I'm on the hunt for the right place at the right time, but I think I got the wrong... Hey! He said he let me in at the right time, but he was late. And now, I won't make it in time if you don't open the right door for me. If I'm late... Holy!
No, get off!
It appears that Russell did stop the tape at this point in the recording in order to provide further assistance to Alex. I heard none of the knocking sounds he spoke of making, nor was I aware of Alex's total experience, detailed later, until after the fact. Both were determined to be in good physical health on the scene, and apart from Russell's blood alcohol level requiring some medical intervention in the form of an aspirin and some water, they were mostly shaken. As I mentioned in my introduction of this tape, Russell has since declined to comment any further on his experiences. He has also declined to specify whether his reluctance is due to an absence of clarity on the details of the evening due to alcohol intoxication or something else entirely. As such, I am providing some editorial input to the final soundbite you are about to hear. While a study of the tape and the equipment upon which it was recorded indicate no tampering or no editing, and the sound is part of the original recording, it appears to occupy no time on the tape. This is Porter speaking to Alex B. It is currently 4 p.m. on the same day as the recorded incident. Alex has chosen to speak about their experience at this time of their own volition and at their own request. Is this correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. Please begin from the inception of your experience last night.
I must have been asleep, but I don't recall any part of the experience of feeling tired or falling asleep.
Is that unusual for you?
Yes, very. I'm normally a light, temperamental sleeper. It takes me a long time to drop off.
And do you often have vivid or lucid dreams?
No.
Thank you. So, what was your first moment of awareness?
Of a door opening across from mine, across the hallway. It opened and I walked in and stood in the frame, and there was a woman sitting in a chair looking out a large bay window.
What was outside the window?
It was day, light, but the light was muted because it was raining like a storm. It made the light soft in the room, the clouds, but it was day. And I remember wondering if I just slept through the whole night and woken up in the morning.
Anyone else in the room with the two of you?
No.
Did you enter the room or engage this woman in any way?
No, I stood in the doorway and watched her.
Did she say anything to you?
No, she didn't notice me at first. Didn't appear to. She sat a long time, some minutes, watching the rain.
Was there anything else in the room?
There was a little side table next to a chair and a candle on it next to her, and something in her lap, some sewing, needlepoint or embroidery or whatever. I'm not too familiar with.
That's all right. You're doing just fine. Was the candle lit?
Yes.
What did it look like?
Small, half spent, in a candle holder. It was the only light beside the window. It gave off a yellow pallor, kind of green almost. You could see it everywhere in the room. That's when we began speaking first. She remarked on the light.
When did she begin to speak to you?
Oh, it was a few 5 seconds after I thought about the yellow light in the room.
That's a very specific passage of time to recall within a dream.
I remember it all.
All right. How did she engage you?
She said, "I know it looks terribly dreary, doesn't it? But it keeps the color out." I wasn't sure if she was talking about the candle or the window at first. And the window was open out to the courtyard, but then she remarked about the rain at the window. She looked out and said, "I was happy for the change in the weather here at first, but now the drops are hissing against the stone at me, and I wish it was over. Don't you wish it were over?"
And this was the first time she engaged you personally?
Yes. She looked at me, and I knew she wanted me to answer, but I felt it all mixed up and just said it hadn't been raining that long, so I wasn't sick of it yet, I didn't think.
Did she attempt to make any conversation based on your reply?
No. I mean, she heard me. She kept talking, but she was talking at me. You know how the way someone just has a conversation they wanted to have along with you, no matter what you say about it? So she just looked at me and kind of made up her mind about...
What do you mean she made up her mind?
Something about her settled on me after I answered. She decided something about me without my knowing what it was, but I had the feeling, the knowledge of it, but not of what it was. It was a very queer feeling. I'd almost call it intuition if it had come from me.
Where do you think it came from?
From her. She wanted me to know it, and so I did. Does that make sense?
Yes, I think so. How did she respond further to you?
She said, "I've been trying to find a crack in the clouds where the sun might be shining through, but there's nothing." And I didn't say anything, but she looked at me and nodded as if I had said something, and then she looked down at the sewing and said, "I've spoiled it already. Do you think I should start another?" And then showed me what she'd been sewing.
What was it?
A hunting scene, 3 men shooting at a white stag.
And did it appear to be soiled in any way?
No, I told her it looked fine. I didn't know what else to say, but she insisted she needed to begin again on account of the blood.
Was there blood anywhere on the cloth?
No.
Anywhere else on her person or in the room?
No, but she kept asking me, "Do you see it? Can't you see it?" And I kept telling her, "No, it looked fine. Did she feel all right?" But then she stopped asking and looked all over, looked at her hands, all over. And finally she said, right to me, right in my eyes, I must have nicked myself on the needle, but I can't see where. I think it's time we let in the light."
And what happened after that?
She went back to the chair and table and blew out the candle.
And what happened to the light in the room after that? Was it affected?
Yes, but just... It was exactly what you would expect outside of in real life, but it made the room darker.
The only light left in the room was from the open window, correct?
Yes. Where I was, by the door, was very dark. After she blew out the candle, she came back to me and took me by the hands and led me to the open window and said, "We must begin again." And then she put my hands down on the windowsill.
How did you feel?
I felt concerned for her, but I was curious. She engaged me, and I didn't feel afraid or anything. I just accepted her presence and her invitation to be closer. So I put my hands on the sill, and I felt the rainwater, and I looked at my hands afterwards, and it was kind of gritty from the dust on the window mixed with water, and she laughed at me. But it was all right. I laughed too.
Why did you laugh?
Because I knew it was the right thing to do. It was supposed to happen. She was showing me it was supposed to happen. And then after I laughed, she took my dirty hands and held it and said, "We did it." And I was so thrilled suddenly and so proud. I can't describe. I didn't know what I had done, but I felt. And we were laughing in the rain, and suddenly I saw the color come and the light come in.
Where was the light coming from?
The rain. The rain changed. It wasn't gray water and sky anymore. It was like rubies falling from the sky, like amber tapestry. But her face, her eyes, I must have stood there in the damp square of light for a long time, because I could not get enough of how it looked on her as the rain fell onto her dress and beaded in her hair and against her skin, until she said, "Look at what we've made together," and we looked down into the courtyard.
It changed?
Yes, it glowed, pink and gold, but dream colors. She said, "I feel adorned," and I told her that she was, and that I loved her.
Did you love her?
Yes. And she laughed again and said, "They're not hissing at us anymore. Can you hear them falling one by one?"
The raindrops.
I could hear them. A million tiny voices calling out to us, to her, as they fell onto the earth and against her clothes and her face and her hair and against each other. The last thing she said to me was, "It's like being kissed. All that has been has disappeared into you and me and this time and this place, and now there's only the glow and the bloom to carry us down and fill us up."
Was that the end of the dream?
Yes, that's the end of my recollection of it.
What is your next memory?
Being jerked back by Rhys, by waking up on the floor underneath the window. Same window.
From your dream?
Yes, but the light was... It's gone. It's gone.
In the absence of a recorded interview for Lenore, I offer instead the following confession, written by the subject on the afternoon following her arrest over the death of Michael I. She is currently awaiting sentencing at the time of this recording, and this document is being read with the express permission of Ms. S. and her legal counsel. It is also the last extant document I have to offer towards any possible closure on this tragedy. All but my own. Beyond what I have offered already by way of context or introduction to the experience of others, I have only this to say. I believe a great evil has been done. I believe it resides in the heart of that castle. And I believe that the five of us have all given something to that evil that can never be recovered. To attempt to explain it further would be a hubris far beyond my own ambition.
"26th of September, 1998. To whom it may concern, let it be known that I, Lenore S., of apparent sound mind and body, hereby confess to the murder of Mr. Michael I., a stranger to me until the afternoon of September the 25th, 1998. While the motives and circumstances surrounding this death still remain in question, even to me, I write this confession of my own free will, without coercion or intimidation, in the vain hope that it might someday be used to bring some meaning to this act. I ask for no mercy, only justice. If I am determined to be insane, or to have been insane when I committed this act, I hope at least that my confinement will sufficiently reflect the severity of my crime. On the night of September 25th, 1998, I was staying in a suite of rooms on a large estate, with a small group of people collected and vetted by a psychologist to determine the effect of potentially paranormal activity on a small focus group of strangers. All four of us, including myself, had been subject to rigorous psychological testing before our admission to the study. There was no reason to expect the unexpected from any of us. The afternoon of our arrival passed uneventfully. Once we had gotten acquainted, we were shown to our rooms and encouraged to look around and get our bearings before the dinner hour. I unpacked, changed, and decided to rest before I went exploring on my own. I lay down to read and experienced something strange almost immediately, though I was not immediately aware of it. My experience of reading in bed covered about 2-3 minutes of conscious time. I remember reading only one page of my book. Upon turning the leaf to a new page, however, I found that the writing didn't make sense, and I noticed then that the page I had turned was numbered some 35 pages after the one I had read. I assumed at first that it was an error in the print, but when I turned the leaf back to look, I saw that instead of turning one page, I had turned several without any memory of having done so. I was confused, but thought without too much concern that I must have fallen asleep and lost my place. A look at my watch seemed to confirm that theory. Nearly an hour had passed since I lay down. I now believe it was my first of 2 experiences of a loss of time, both of which began on that bed, in that room. The rest of the evening was pleasant. We ate dinner together, got to know each other, and went for a candlelit tour of the property before heading off to our separate wings for bed. As far as I know, I am the only one to have had anything unusual happen before the events of the early morning. I returned to my rooms and read my book again for some time, with no further incident. Turned off the light and went to sleep at about 11:40 p.m. My next memory is not of waking up, as I believe I was already awake and conscious and experiencing a second loss of time. I became aware that I was standing up in the light of the early morning, some distance from the bed, and of a painful and enormous pressure and cold focused entirely on my hands. I couldn't move or open them. Felt exactly like they were being held and pulled by someone. The sensation was so strong, it jerked me forward just as it became fully conscious. I saw no one else in the room. No one could have done what I felt. I looked down and saw that there was a knife in each hand. I'd never seen them before. My first instinct was to drop them, but I found that although the pressure on my hands had disappeared, I still couldn't open them. There was blood on the blades, on my hands and my nightgown. I was still disoriented and thought I must have somehow come upon these daggers in this gap of time and cut myself. Perhaps cut through the nerves and into muscle and bone, and that's why I couldn't feel my hands and why I felt so unwell. It never occurred to me at the time to call on anyone for help. I just had an overwhelming urge to return to bed. I realized I was in the wrong room when I noticed that the bed had a full set of curtains, fully drawn. My bed had no curtains. I began to feel anxious, but I continued to move towards the bed and attempted to pull back the curtain with the elbow of my right arm, as it was one of the few areas on my body not covered in blood. I did so and saw the body of Mr. I, in much the same position as he was in when the police arrived. It was clear he was dead. His cuts were deep, his eyes were open, and he had lost what appeared to be most of the blood in his body. Nonetheless, I considered attempting resuscitation, and would have done so had I been able to open my hands and drop the weapons, but I still couldn't. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to leave the room because I couldn't remember where Mr. I's room had been relative to my own, and I didn't want to get lost or meet anyone unexpectedly and give them a scare, looking like I did with a knife in each hand, no less. I thought of nothing else at that point. No horror, no regret, no guilt, no memory. None of those things still. No doubt that may be used against me, but I have nothing left to lose by that. Somewhere in the distance, I heard what I thought was a door slam. It continued with some regularity, and I realized that somewhere far off, someone was knocking at another door. As soon as the knocking stopped, the feeling came back into my hands, my fingers opened, and the daggers dropped. I left the room, changed my dress, careful to leave the nightgown in its former state for future analysis. Went into the main hall and called the police myself. The local police will note, no doubt, that I have been fully cooperative thus far, though I can tell them far less than they'd like. They will continue to find me so. Perhaps the memories will return, if they exist at all. But I am sure all available evidence in this investigation will point to me as the perpetrator of this crime, along with this confession. Though no motive will probably ever be established. I have none. I know I killed this man. I am sure he didn't deserve it. I believe I deserve to be punished. And I am strangely at peace. Perhaps the cold I felt in my hands worked its way into my heart. I feel I have nothing left to lose but time.
That is our show. Please allow me to introduce our cast. Oh, here we go. Henry Alper.
Hello.
Lilia Bernstein. Kyle Dayrit. Yvette Del Toro. Laura Domingo.
Hello.
Drew Benjamin Jones.
Oh, thanks.
Josie Bergen Lawson.
Hi.
James Lucas.
Hey.
Caitlin Papp.
Hello.
Skylar Riordan.
Hey, everybody.
Ron Talbot. Thomas Times.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming.
And Jonathan Williams.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining us. Keep an eye out for episode 4, which will be coming up in mid-June. And please visit the link in the description and support your local theaters. Art is vital. Wishing you santé and sanity. Have a good night.